First sons never succeed without going through this process. Watch from the beginning to the end of this story to understand the evil and spiritual forces behind the first sons and the firstborn in any family. Emmanuel reflects on his life as the first son in a struggling Nigerian family. From a young age, he notices that every step he takes ends in failure. From poor exam results to failed business. Meanwhile, his younger siblings seem to prosper with ease. Emmanuel's frustration grows as he shoulders family responsibilities that seem impossible to manage. This is Tedder's Folktale Studio. Please kindly subscribe to my channel for more stories. Emmanuel sat by the dusty roadside, watching the sunset. He felt frustrated, like being the firstborn was a curse he couldn't escape. His parents always reminded him that he had to be strong, to lead the way for his siblings. But no matter how hard he tried, success always slipped away from him. At school, his younger siblings did well, but Emmanuel struggled. The teachers called him stupid child, and his classmates teased him. He failed his final exams twice, and the shame still haunted him. But he had no time to dwell on it. His family needed him. After his father lost his job, Emmanuel worked odd jobs to help out. Yet, nothing ever worked. A bus business failed, a scholarship was rejected, and a poultry farm collapsed due to disease. His siblings, on the other hand, thrived. Chuka had a good job in Lagos, and Amora was excelling in medical school. They looked up to him, but no one noticed how their success made his struggles feel even heavier. "You're the firstborn," his mother often said. "You must rise above it all." But Emmanuel felt trapped. Every step forward felt like sinking in quicksand. Sitting by the roadside, he wondered, why him? Was there something wrong with him? Or was there an unseen force working against him? The more Emmanuel thought about his failures, the more he noticed a strange pattern. He wasn't the only firstborn in his family who struggled. His uncle Namdi, his father's older brother, was once a successful trader. But a fire destroyed his warehouse, and he never recovered. Now, he depended on his younger siblings for survival. Then there was Auntie Deborah, the eldest in his mother's family. Her marriage collapsed mysteriously, and she was now isolated. "Firstborns always struggle," Emmanuel's father said. When he mentioned it, "That's just life." But to Emmanuel, it felt like more than coincidence. Why did every firstborn in the family seem destined for hardship while their younger siblings flourished? This is a wonderful story. Subscribe is free. Please subscribe to my channel for more wonderful stories. The more he asked questions, the more uneasy he became. Each story followed the same pattern: early promise, unexpected failure, and then dependence on others. It didn't seem like bad luck. There had to be a deeper reason. But whenever he tried to talk about it, his family dismissed him. His siblings laughed at him, and his mother scolded him for questioning fate. Still, the feeling wouldn't go away. Was this really his destiny? Or was there something he could do to change it? It happened after another failed business deal left Emmanuel devastated. Late one night, as he sat in the dark, his father joined him on the veranda. For the first time, the old man shared a family secret. "There's something you should know," his father began. "Before you were born, my father told me about a curse." Emmanuel froze. His heart pounded. "Our family is under a curse," his father continued. "Your great-grandfather angered a deity when he stole something from the village shrine. He promised to return it but never did. The deity cursed all firstborn sons in our family to a life of failure and misery." Emmanuel felt like the ground had shifted beneath him. Suddenly, his struggles made sense. But anger boiled inside him. "Why didn't you tell me before?" His father sighed. "What good would it have done? There's no escape." But Emmanuel refused to accept that. If the curse was real, he would find a way to break it even if it killed him. The next morning, Emmanuel couldn't stop thinking about his father's words. Determined to learn more, he started asking questions. His uncles and aunts avoided the topic, but after much pleading, his great-aunt, Mama Oji, finally revealed the full story. Your great-grandfather, Okeke, took a sacred mask from the village shrine, she whispered. It was meant for a festival honoring the gods. He promised to return it, but he sold it instead. Emmanuel was horrified. And no one tried to fix this, he said. Mama Oji shook her head. Okeke died before he could. Since then, the curse has followed us. Only the firstborn suffer. Emmanuel's blood ran cold. If he did nothing, his life and the lives of future firstborns would be ruined. Desperate, Emmanuel sought out a seer in a neighboring village. The old man listened as he explained his troubles. The curse is real, he confirmed. To break it, you must appease the deity and return what was taken. But beware, it will demand great sacrifices. His words sent shivers down his spine. Emmanuel returned home with a heavy heart. The task seemed impossible, yet he had no choice. The curse didn't just affect him, it was a chain binding future generations. But his family's expectations never stopped. Your siblings need school fees, his mother said. Chuka is struggling with rent in Lagos. You must help. Emmanuel felt guilty. How could he explain that he was barely surviving himself? Every job he tried ended in failure, and every loan left him in more debt. He felt like an empty shell, stretched too thin under responsibilities he couldn't meet. His siblings didn't understand. They expected him to lead. Amora, in particular, resented him. You're the eldest, but you've done nothing for us, she once snapped. Emmanuel swallowed his pain. The curse had taken away his ability to provide, yet he was blamed for circumstances beyond his control. Despite his struggles, one thing gave Emmanuel hope: that his blessing. She was kind and intelligent, a woman who deserved better than him. At first, their relationship was his safe space. Ada believed in him when he doubted himself. But as his failures grew, so did the cracks between them. He couldn't afford to take her out, let alone plan a future together. One evening, after another argument about money, Blessing said, Emmanuel, I love you, but I can't keep waiting for you to fix your life. When will things change? Her words cut deep because he had no answer. As long as the curse remained, he feared he would never give her the life she deserved. Slowly, their love faded, and Emmanuel watched helplessly as Ada drifted away. The day Emmanuel lost his last source of income was the day he hit rock bottom. A cleaning job he had secured was suddenly cancelled, and the money he was counting on disappeared. With eviction looming, he sat in his dark room, drowning in despair. Why me? He muttered. What have I done to deserve this? For hours, he wrestled with his thoughts. The weight of his failures, his family's expectations, and the curse crushed him. By dawn, he made a decision: he would confront the curse, or it would destroy him. Emmanuel visited spiritual leaders for help. Pastors prayed, herbalists performed rituals, but nothing changed. Frustrated, he returned to the seer. She looked at him solemnly. You must go beyond prayers, she said. You must retrace your ancestors' steps and confront the deity directly. Her words terrified him, but he had no other choice. He guided him through a 7-day cleansing ritual. On the 7th day, he traveled to his ancestral village, knelt at his forefathers' graves, and poured libations, asking for their guidance. As he prayed, a strange stillness filled the air. For the first time, Emmanuel felt a flicker of hope. But before the curse could be broken, he had to make a sacrifice. He sold his father's ancestral farmland. His family was furious. His mother wept, his siblings turned against him. "You're ruining everything," they shouted. But Emmanuel refused to stop. He was ready to face the deity. Sick, weak, and alone, he traveled to the shrine. With prayers, sacrifices, and the last of his strength, he prepared to confront the deity and fight for his freedom. Emmanuel stood before the ancient shrine, his heart pounding. The thick forest surrounded him, silent except for the occasional rustling of leaves. He had come alone, carrying the final offerings, a white rooster, palm oil, and a bundle of kola nuts. The priest, an old man with deep wrinkles and piercing eyes, guided him through the process. "You must speak from your heart," he said. "A broken curse must come with true repentance." Emmanuel knelt before the shrine, his knees pressing into the damp earth. He poured the palm oil onto the ground and spoke. "Great deity, my ancestors failed you. I am here to make things right. Please, release my family from this suffering." The moment he finished speaking, a strong wind swept through the shrine. The trees groaned, and the air grew heavy. Emmanuel felt something shift, something unseen but powerful. The priest stepped forward. "It is done. But be watchful. The spirit may test you one last time." Emmanuel nodded, his heart still racing. He had done what was required. Now, all he could do was wait. That night, Emmanuel tossed and turned in his sleep. A strange dream took hold of him. He stood in the middle of a dark river, unable to move. A shadowy figure appeared on the water's surface, watching him with glowing eyes. "You dare to undo what was sworn," the figure hissed. Emmanuel felt fear, but he stood firm. "I have returned what was taken. Let me go." The shadow lunged at him, and suddenly, Emmanuel found himself drowning. He struggled, but the water pulled him deeper. His lungs burned, his vision blurred. Then, a voice echoed in his mind. "Asterisk, you are free. Do not turn back." Asterisk. Emmanuel gasped awake, drenched in sweat. The room was silent, but he felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. He whispered to himself, "It's over." For the first time in years, Emmanuel woke up feeling different. He no longer carried the heaviness that had haunted him for so long. The world seemed brighter, his heart lighter. He returned home, expecting nothing to change overnight. But as the days passed, he noticed small victories. Jobs that once failed now seemed to work out. A long-lost friend reached out with a business opportunity. Even his mother, who had been angry with him, softened her tone. Emmanuel knew the curse had been lifted, but rebuilding his life would take time. With renewed determination, Emmanuel started taking small jobs again. This time, he saved wisely. He no longer acted out of desperation. One day, he ran into an old friend, Emeka, who owned a growing transportation business. "Emmanuel, I need someone I can trust," Emeka said. "Can you help me manage one of my routes?" It was a small offer, but for the first time, Emmanuel felt hope. "Yes," he said firmly. "I'm ready." Emmanuel knew he had to fix his relationship with his family. He sat with his mother one evening, watching her prepare dinner. "Mama, I did what I had to do. I couldn't let the curse destroy me," he said. She sighed. "I was scared, Emmanuel. But I see now, things are changing." His siblings, too, started noticing his progress. Chuka, once distant, admitted, "Brother, I didn't understand before. But you fought for all of us. Thank you." Emmanuel felt the warmth of belonging again. With Emeka's support, Emmanuel expanded his role in the transport business. He learned the trade, saved money, and even invested in a small bus of his own. For the first time, he could send money home instead of borrowing. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Emmanuel knew he had to face Blessing. He found her outside her clinic one evening. "Blessing, I failed before, but I've changed. I'm building something now. I won't let you down again. She hesitated, but he saw the emotion in her eyes. Emmanuel. I never stopped caring. I just needed you to fight for yourself first. They talked for hours, slowly rebuilding the trust that had been lost. With his new success, Emmanuel began reaching out to other firstborn sons in his extended family. He spoke to his cousin, Hugo, who was struggling. We were not meant to suffer forever, Emmanuel told him. We can break free. Word spread, and soon others came to him for advice. Emmanuel started a small support group for young men in his village. He taught them how to save, how to invest, and most importantly, how to believe in themselves. Your past does not define your future, he told them. And they listened. One night, Emmanuel had another dream. The deity reappeared, but this time, it was not angry. You have done well, it said. But remember, honor your ancestors, keep your word, and the curse will never return. Emmanuel woke up with a deep sense of peace. With Emmanuel's breakthrough, his entire family began to flourish. Chuka got a promotion, Amara graduated as a doctor, and their mother no longer worried about money. For the first time in generations, the firstborn son was no longer a failure. Months later, Emmanuel and Blessing stood before family and friends, exchanging vows. It was a simple wedding, but to Emmanuel, it was proof that he had won. You never gave up on me, he whispered to Blessing. And I never will, she replied. Emmanuel started a foundation to help firstborn sons struggling like he once did. He used his story to inspire them, proving that change was possible. One evening, Emmanuel sat with his young son, telling him their family story. Always do what is right, he said. Our name carries history, but we shape our own future. The boy listened intently, his eyes filled with admiration. Years later, Emmanuel stood in his home, watching his family laugh and share a meal. He thought back to the boy who once sat by the roadside, feeling cursed. Now, he knew the truth, he was never cursed. He was chosen to break the cycle. As he looked around at his thriving family, he whispered a silent prayer of gratitude. He had won. The curse was broken.